Dear friends, preeminent American New Testament scholar John Dominic Crossan, in his book Jesus, a Revolutionary Biography, asks a provocative question. How many years was Easter Sunday? And it is actually the title of an entire chapter 7. And Crossan primarily wants to show that encounters with the resurrected are not limited to several weeks after crucifixion, pointing out the experience of Apostle Paul, which clearly happened several years later. But there is a similar, if not even greater, mystery. How many days after Good Friday was the Easter Sunday? And here seems to be a simple answer. In 1 Corinthians 15 is the so-called pistis formula of faith. And in this oldest ever account of Easter events, Paul writes, I handed on to you what I in turn had received. So clearly it predates whatever and whenever Paul is writing like 2 decades after Easter. So I handed on to you what I in turn first received, that Christ died and that he was buried, and that he was raised on the 3rd day in accordance with the Scriptures. Well, that is clear and simple. Good Friday to Easter Sunday are indeed 3 days. So why mystery? What enigma? What am I talking about? In this simple counting of days, there is a real snag. Some early Christian traditions, you need to understand, mention Galilean appearances of the resurrected. And those were not some later appearances after disciples, some of them moved to Galilee. There are strong indications that the disciples met with the resurrected first, not in Jerusalem, but in Galilee. For instance, one instance might be the first ending of the Gospel of Mark. And here you need to understand that Galilee is something like 100 miles away from Jerusalem. And at that time, it would mean at least a week-long journey. This Galilean tradition, this tradition about meeting the resurrected first in Galilee, cannot be easily harmonized with the rest of the stories. And this is quite difficult to imagine that that would be created later on, this story about Galilean appearances. No one will make it up because it would be so sticking out. This very fact makes it so interesting and also quite plausible. After Jesus was arrested and executed, disciples scattered, escaped to their home in Galilee, and there they first encountered the resurrected. A fulfillment of Hosea prophecy about 3 days, by the way, quite convoluted prophecy and difficult to actually fit on Easter story, was added later. And a story about finding an empty tomb is known to be even later, most likely after the fall of Jerusalem, after the year 70 of Common Era, some 40 years after crucifixion. And so it is quite likely the disciples met the resurrected first in Galilee, and that it happened at least 10 days after crucifixion. And that is something you might not know about the Bible. Join us in worship this Easter Sunday, celebrating the resurrection by reading one of these Galilean accounts.